Hi, I'm Camille Urett presenting on workplace sexual harassment policy. Sexual harassment is demeaning and also unequal treatment on the basis of sex. Comments directed at a woman, such as, "Let me help you lift that," are sex discriminatory. Feminist theorists argue that sexual harassment exists as a result of hegemonic masculine ideology. And that necessitates men dominating women under the theory that they have an unequal position in society. Sexual harassment is actually illegal under Title VII. Sexual harassment is often not motivated by sexual desire, but it is actually motivated in order to humiliate the victim. Also, under the law, sexual harassment is subjective and based upon the victim's feeling of offense towards the behavior. An example of that is a picture of a naked woman at a workplace experienced as sexual harassment. Before sexual harassment was sexual harassment, there existed conditions in society under which men coerced women into having sex with them. We saw this with female slaves, and we saw this in the factories that women worked in. Also, the women's rights movement posited their own theory that because women are economically dependent on men, that it leads to coercive conditions. In the 1970s, a great influx of women, more than ever before, went into the workplace. However, industry objectified women. An example is this advertisement. The National Organization of Women actually filed suit against the airline who placed this ad. How did sexual harassment come about as we understand it today? It came about under the guidance of a professor at Cornell. Her students met in consciousness-raising groups and discussed the common thread of their oppression in society. In that group, the women determined they had all either been fired or quit because of the behavior of men towards them in the workplace. The first case that these students analyzed was that of Carmita Woods, an administrative assistant who quit her job at the university after repeated advances from her boss. Additionally, women gathered in speak-outs in which individuals came forward and talked about their experiences of sexual harassment. This organizing led to litigation within the court system. The first victory occurred in the mid-80s, and which led to employers implementing policies for the very first time. Within the court system, the issue of determining the merit of a claim of sexual harassment became an emergent issue. The courts began implementing the reasonable man standard. And that way, determining the merit was neither dependent on oversensitivity of the victim nor bias by the all-male judges determining the verdicts of these cases. Feminist theorists argued for a reasonable woman standard instead as a more fair alternative towards evaluating these cases. After that Supreme Court victory, victims became very successful when persecuting, and therefore employers began reducing their liability by implementing trainings such as anti-sexual harassment trainings for everyone in the workplace and grievance procedures. We see a huge percentage, about 90% of companies, and millions of dollars spent every year on these trainings. Furthermore, surveys of the era revealed that men harassed women in the workplace about 50% of the time, and half of women were harassed. What are the conditions that an employer can reduce their liability through? Prevention, correction, and unfortunately, the victim must speak up in her own defense through the appropriate channels within the company for her claim of sexual harassment to have merit in the courts. Sexual harassment is still prevalent today. A survey from 2008 evidences a rate of 1 in 7. But people understand what sexual harassment is, more so today than they did in the past. In fact, 40% of people thought that soliciting sex from others at work was appropriate in the 80s. Now, 90% of people believe the opposite and that is wrong behavior under the sexual harassment policies and laws in place. However, a case study implemented details about resistance that people feel towards sexual harassment policies. The crux of this resistance comes from the idea that interactions involving sex in the workplace are innocent and normal. Delving deeper into this case study, one uncovers the stereotypes of women who can't tolerate sexualized joking. This has become a image of a woman that women actively avoid in the workplace, but they force their tolerance and consciously avoid the stereotype. About 88% of people believe that the best way to stop a sexual harasser is directly confronting them about the behavior. But about 40% of people ignore sexual harassment. Intervening towards the end of this issue requires implementing policies that increase the representation of women in the workplace. Those measures include promoting women into leadership positions, as well as on-site daycare and other services that specifically target the needs of women. Also, sexual harassment policies need actual teeth. They need sanction. The system under its current order doesn't treat these issues with any real teeth, and oftentimes abusers go unpunished. However, actual sanctions requires actions such as separating the perpetrator and the accuser in the workplace into different departments. If that does not occur, the company is liable. Thank you for watching my presentation.